Okay, weekly dose of free business coaching. Here we go. And this applies whether you are an entrepreneur or not. I've been coaching women for over 3 years now. And actually, it doesn't even have to do with coaching. I've been a human alive on this earth for 44 years. And this is what I have witnessed. And my 44 years is of being a person interacting with other people. So yes, this one does not just apply to entrepreneurs or business leaders or sales experts. Okay, this is literally human nature and it's what all of our brains do. So let's have a conversation about this. I think every single person, I have never met somebody yet that has never experienced this. So there is usually at some point in your life where things feel like they're going along well, right? Maybe your job is going well, your business is going well, family things are going well. And suddenly your brain decides to hijack and tell you about all the things that are going wrong, all the things that you're failing at, all the things that aren't going the way you wanted them to. Your brain can literally turn into the biggest asshole that there has ever been. Okay, it doesn't mean that you're an asshole, but your brain can turn into an asshole. There was a book that I read many years ago. I cannot remember the name of it right now. Perry Noble, I believe, is the author. And he said a quote in the book that said, if you talked to your friends the way you talk to yourself, you wouldn't have any. And that struck me so deeply because I know back at that time, circa 17 or whenever it was that I read his book, I thought, holy crap, if I talk to my friends the way that my brain talks to myself, I definitely wouldn't have any. Like I would never tell my friends the thoughts that would run through my mind, right? So everybody experiences this at all levels, right? Of levels of business, level of career growth. It's not something that people at a higher level don't experience. Everybody's brain, because we're human, everybody's brain hijacks them at some point in time and serves up really horrible thoughts about yourself, about what you're doing, about your work in this world. What happens inside of our brains, if you're wired anything like me, your brain starts to create these false truths. Okay? These false truths feel emotionally very, very real, but they're not actually factually true. So it might look like, if you're an entrepreneur, it might look like obsessing over your pricing, wondering if you really know enough to charge XYZ price point. It might look like your brain telling you that you shouldn't even be doing this. You're a fraud. Nobody's going to hire you. Why did you even get into this work? That money you made was a fluke. It might look like obsessing and overthinking a conversation that you had with somebody. Maybe it's your boss, maybe it's a loved one, maybe it's a client. And then your mind starts like dwelling on it, right? Like laying awake at night thinking, oh, why did I say that? Or why didn't I say that? And that's when like shame can start to creep in. It gets real ugly real fast when shame is in the room, right? Our brains can spin out of control and it feels very, very real. Okay, so let's say you're overthinking a conversation that you had with somebody and you're not sure that you like how you handled the conversation. When your brain is spinning out, what it does is it obsesses on the things that you wish you could have done differently or wish you had done differently. It makes the spin out worse and it can keep you stuck down kind of in this hole. And that's what can start to breed more anxiety. Even some depression can start to come in, right? Because your mind is like obsessively thinking about, I should have done this instead. I didn't do that. Why didn't I say this? I should have said that. So I'm sharing with you today one of the most powerful questions to answer for yourself when your brain decides to be a jerk. And probably the biggest piece of the work is recognizing when your brain is digging out on you and being like, oh, I see what's happening right now. And I'm going to pause because I don't want to spin out like this. And I'm going to ask myself this question and I'm going to answer it. You have to be willing to not indulge in the spin out that's happening. But when you pause, the simple question to ask yourself that can change everything when your brain is being a jerk is, how could the opposite be true? Such a simple question, right? But ask yourself, how could the opposite be true? And then literally grab a pen and paper and start writing it out and building evidence for how the opposite could be true. Now, we're all human. We might make mistakes. Maybe you really did say something nasty to somebody and you just need to go apologize, right? But spinning out and overthinking the conversation doesn't do any better, right? Apologizing would be the right solution. Overthinking it and losing sleep over it actually doesn't resolve the problem. So, like, this isn't, what's the word I want to use? This isn't like something to hide behind. If we've done wrong, we own up to it. In business, in our personal lives, we just own up to it. But when your brain is just being a jerk about it, that's where this work comes in. Okay, so ask yourself, how could the opposite be true? And then actually write it down. If you're driving in the car and you're thinking about it, you can run through these things inside of your head, but something magical happens in the brain when you put pen to paper and you actually write it out. So for example, let's say one of your things that your brain likes to tell you is that you're not doing enough. Okay, you're not doing enough. And this is obsessively running through your head. You're letting everybody down. You're a giant failure. You're not doing enough. You can't keep up. Other people are doing it better, right? This can look like little variations or all of the above, right? So then sit down and ask yourself, actually, how could the opposite be true? And then start building evidence for that. So, for example, what would be some evidence that you are actually doing enough? Okay, I work with a lot of business leaders and entrepreneurs. So when we're talking about business, it might look like sitting down and asking yourself, so what did I do in my business? How am I already doing enough inside of my business? Maybe you emailed your list. Maybe you did one social post. Maybe you had a really great conversation with a client. Maybe you're fully booked. Maybe you just raised your prices and you just signed your newest next client at that higher price. Maybe your clients feel really loved and served. Maybe you just got your product into a new wholesale place, right? There are so many things going on in our lives and businesses. Maybe your children feel very loved. Maybe you sat down and had a really great meal with your family, whether or not you made it. Okay, maybe you got some really amazing takeout and you had a really great meal with your family. Maybe you have a trip planned with the family, right? When we look at personal and business lives, they're so interconnected. I love the saying, I don't even know where I first heard it, possibly Brooke Castillo, I'm not sure. But how you do one thing is how you do everything. Because our brains are driving every decision that we make, and our brains are driving the car in everything that we do in life and business, our careers. So it makes sense that we see these patterns throughout. So if you're an entrepreneur, let's say, and your brain is spinning out of, I'm not doing enough in my business, I'm not doing enough in my business, what it usually leads to, or what I find it usually leads to for women, is this underlying thought of like, I'm letting everyone down, right? Like it's not just actually contained to the business, even though that's where the thought started. They feel like they're letting everybody down, and I'm letting my kids down, my husband down, my friends down, right? My clients down. The brain is just spinning out. So taking that moment, being really intentional, taking that moment and pausing, grabbing a pen and paper. And what I want you to know too is you can be in the spin out and still say like, okay, I'm going to get myself out of this. And to get myself out of this, I'm going to ask myself, how could the opposite be true? What am I actually doing really well right now? And then start making that list. There is something that you're doing well. I love celebrating that good things happen every day. Those good things might be huge, might be big financial wins, business growth, like the really fun benchmarks to celebrate. But sometimes the things that I celebrate are like, I've lost my spikes that go on my tennis shoes to run in the snow twice this month. And both times somebody at the park found them and hung it in a spot where I could find it, right? Good things happen every day. You don't have to feel like positive Polly in order to sit down and do this work, because when your brain is being a giant jerk or an asshole to you, you're not going to feel like positive Polly, but reminding yourself that those are false truths and then going to work to find the evidence that supports the opposite. And what most people find when they do this is, even if they're still feeling anxious about a situation or something going on, when you sit down and literally write out, like, how could the opposite be true? Here's all the evidence. Here's actually, right, here's everything that I am doing. Here's everything that is going well. It's almost like when you're anxious, it's like you're holding your breath, and then you see that list and it's like, oh, it like allows your body to relax and sink into it and do this giant exhale. And you can see like, okay, I might still feel some anxiety right now, but yes, there are things that are going well for me. I am actually doing, creating, and accomplishing a lot right now. My brain just wasn't focused on those in the moment. So share with me below if you've done this work. Shoot me a DM. I would love to hear how it goes for you. And some of this work, so the longer we spend spinning out, the longer we spend consumed by either in confusion, indecision, fear, or doubt, anxiety, worry, the longer we spend consumed with those things, the less productive we actually are. So if you are a business leader, sales expert, and entrepreneur, I have a really fun and exciting 5 days next week that I would love for you to join us. If you have felt like, gosh, I love my business, I love my work, but it feels high anxiety. I feel like I'm living at a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on the level of stress scale. I feel overwhelmed, or I'm working more hours than I want to be working. Or I think to scale my business, I need to work more hours. Those are all signs that you need to join. It's called Rich and Relaxed. It's 5 days. It's only available next week for 5 days. Rich and Relaxed pop-up Facebook group. And we are going to be talking specifically to entrepreneurs, business leaders, and sales experts about how to create more calm and confidence in your work and your business while still making a lot of money, right? Because making all the money in the world is literally meaningless if you have no time to enjoy it, or you drop dead 10 years early from a heart attack because of all the stress that you carried, right? And those people that you're working so hard to serve right now are not going to be in any sort of a better position if you die young from all the stress. So, Rich and Relaxed, comment below if you don't find the group. A few questions to answer, and then the free 5 days is going to kick off on Monday, which I believe is the 21st.